A good Monday to you all. Nick Hines reporting here on a Balletic Live. Tremendous Monday, Joe. I got taken off guard here, but welcome and an important day, of course, and an important week for the journey of Balletic mare that is now headed to the breeding shed. We want to appreciate each and every one of you who have tuned in. We know that we've been getting the introduction of this whole process in and obviously trying to line up the proper setting. But here we are, and welcoming in Joe Moran, our racing manager and good friend. A good day to you Monday. Joe, thank you.
Yeah, Nick, happy to be back on here with you. Exciting time, something new that we're going to be doing for the first time for my racehorse, getting into the breeding game. And just, you've seen the excitement from the people. And even, this 2 weeks ago now, we were at the OBS showcase, and the feedback we got that we decided to go down this route. My guess is this won't be the last time we do it based off the feedback, but we'll see how this one goes and go on from there.
Well, as it's been quite an interesting journey with this daughter of Into Mischief. Of course, Into Mischief is arguably the most sought after stallion on the planet, if you will, outside of the exception of maybe a few, the Tappets and the Frankels of the world. But, in the line of Balletic, knowing that she's had, not a career that we had hoped she would have, kind of a shorter-ended career, but there's plenty of residual value that comes into play here. And clearly the decision being made to breed her and then potentially offer up in full at a sale is something that is under consideration and what's being intended. So talk to us a little bit about the process, maybe give us a little bit of a background on the journey with Balletic and where we stand today. I also want to remind you that is a live show here on this Monday, February 26th. And, we appreciate your questions. I know that we've got a number of questions that have been presented. We're also going to be bringing in the president of Airdrie Stud. It did come down to a voting process. The committee sat down. We talked about a number of different stallions and narrowed it down to 4. And the vote was placed, and it has been narrowed down to both Mage, who has been introduced as a freshman stallion this year, Kentucky Derby winning Mage, son of Good Magic, and the proven commodity in Upstart by Flatter. But first, talk to us a little bit about Balletic, where she stands today and how she's doing.
Yeah, so the process kind of all started just over a year ago. Out of her most recent race, was back in mid-February of 2023. She came out of that race. She got back in the work tab and unfortunately came up with a knee injury. We knew it was going to be a long process to get her back to the races. We made an attempt and gave her all the time adequate to be able to get back into training. We started her back up in training at Silver Springs. During the wintertime with weather, we shipped her down to Todd Pletcher's dad's father's farm, Peyton Training Center. And as she escalated in her training, Gerard Butler, who's the farm trainer there, kind of just gave us the hint that, it was going to be a rough road, given that we haven't even got to speed work yet. And it was really under advisement of them that for her to become a racehorse again, we were going to be in an uphill battle. So given the timing and that breeding season was quickly approaching, this is how this idea all came about. And, based off the initial feedback we got, we knew we made the right decision by doing this. And then, immediately after, we shipped her back to Kentucky, and we've started this voting process where our team internally, using experts in the industry as well, coming up with 4 stallions that we thought fit from a budget standpoint. I think the big thing, we got a lot of questions, is when you think of the Tappets and the Curlinses of the world, as you were mentioning, the cost to have a resale value. We had to come up with what we thought would be commercially appealing stallions to be able to resell her, and at the same time put ourselves in a budget to be successful financially as well. So it came into these 4 stallions, and just happened to be that both stallions were at Airdrie Stud, and I'm really excited to get Bret on here and hear from the president of him. They've done so much good work in the game, and they've just been so accommodating. We also had Nikki Morris of our team head out to the farm, and Shannon, who has played many roles in the racing industry and has always been great to my racehorse, did 2 hits on both stallions for us, and it was just cool to see them up close and hear from the staff, and we'll get to hear more from Bret as well.
And let's quickly take a look, Joe, at the vote graphic in which the members and the partners involved with Balletic, over 4,000 partners with Balletic, and I have to give credit where credit is due to My Racehorse Nation, because from my understanding, we had over 1,100 individuals that voted on this, and it's amazing that it came down to 0.1 percentage point between Mage and Upstart. They just so happen to be standing at Airdrie Stud. You couldn't have designed it much closer than that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it was, we tried to do our best to put a mix of 2 first-year stallions and then also 2 proven stallions in that mix that are what we'll call kind of 2 stallions that maybe had a little bit of a slower start, but it really seemed to be coming into the mix of things as more crops have been hitting the ground for them.
All right. So again, what stallion do you think is the best match for Balletic? And there's so much that goes into this, Joe, and we're going to take on these questions as they've been presented. And again, this is a live show, so if you have questions, can't guarantee that we're going to get to all of them, but by all means, we're going to do our best to do so. But in your mind, you obviously have been involved in the breeding game through your father, and not to mention the process here with My Racehorse. But what are the things that come to mind in regard to that? How do you determine the mare to which stallion that you would essentially breed? Is it based on their physical makeup? Is it just pedigree? Is it a feeling? And I know that there are algorithms and there are programs out there between the hypothetical matings, the work nicks, and true nicks that you can match them up. But in your mind, what is paramount? I mean, we're talking about 2 different degrees here, because we're looking at the commercial aspect and we're looking at the end user.
Yeah.
What is the end user? And the end user is that we would get a foal and essentially campaign. So there's definitely 2 schools of thought here. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. As you said, it really, the way you come into it, I think, does have to alter your decision a bit. But I'll say the most important thing, I think, is physical. When you're matching a mare up to a stallion, you really want to take her weaknesses or her strengths and match up to a stallion that can make that foal, that super foal in things. I mean, we talk about, athletes and trying to create the best athlete. It's the same thing when you're coming here. So I think physical is a big makeup. And then I think it all comes down to what your purpose of that foal or what that mare, the purpose down the road is. And when you're talking commercially, you want something that's going to be attractive. Now, if you're breeding to race, you can maybe be on the patient side and have something that's going to be maybe a later developing horse based off the pedigree. But I think in this case, with the intent to sell in November, we have to make it as commercial appealing as possible, and something that's going to give a buyer a reason to buy that mare, right? So it's from all aspects of the mare alone. I mean, they're going to have the decision to breed after that, but also that foal in particular, whether they're going to resell or they're buying to race.
All right. And the good news is, as Balletic stands, currently she is at TaylorMade, and I know that you've been in contact with Phil Shelton in the farm, and she is ready. From what I understand, she's been ovulating, and essentially, I guess Wednesday would be the first day for that mating to take place. So the decision has to be made, needs to be made like essentially now. But once again, we are here today to answer questions for those that may have those questions or concerns. And how do you essentially come to this point in which you decide who do you breed to? All right, let's get into the questions here, and then we're going to welcome in our special guest, president of Airdrie Stud. Proud to call him a friend, Bret Jones. And Steve mentioning if we sell the mare and foal, are we the breeder? Joe.
Yes, sir. We would be the breeder. Once we do breed, we would have to fill out all that paperwork. So I imagine it will read My Racehorse. So it'll be awesome and exciting one day to hopefully see that foal at the racetrack and see My Racehorse represented as the breeder.
All right. Thank you, Steve, for sending your question in. Next question up is, can Balletic handle a pregnancy well physically given her previous surgery and knee injury? This is from Gwen. I'm concerned about the additional weight of the foal on her.
Yeah, no, this is a great question. It was one of the first things when we decided to send her to TaylorMade, obviously giving them all the history on her. Everyone is very confident in the situation. I think the key here is when we decided to retire her, she did not refracture. So there was not a new injury, but I think we were trying to prevent an injury from happening again. So I think everyone's confident here. There's been plenty of mares, whether it's a screw in an ankle or a knee, that have went on to be successful brood mares. So on our end, there's no fear in this.
Thank you for that, Gwen. And again, it's an important question. And I think the other point of view, and I hadn't had the opportunity myself personally to work around Balletic, but as far as her nuances, as far as just her overall personality, she seemed to have the type of makeup to be a good broodmare, Joe.
I would think so. I haven't had the luxury of being with her on a daily basis, being on the West Coast. But everything that we've been told from the farm, she's acclimated right into farm life. Great. She has a group of friends, they said, in her paddock. So she's enjoying life, and she's always been an easy filly to be around. Even from the time that she was purchased as a yearling, she's always had a good mind. And I would say that is a tendency of the Intermischiefs, that they are well-minded. So I think she'll take right to it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And again, it's unfortunate that we never had the opportunity to kind of see her true colors on the racetrack. I mean, clearly she had the talent. It was just a matter of having enough luck and, for us to kind of get through it in a sense that she could stay racing sound and go on and be the horse that we thought she would be. I mean, thinking the fact that she had 3 starts, a win, 2 seconds, there was a lot to be grateful for. But a big thank you to TaylorMade. They had originally consigned her, and of course, for the breeders, the Pollock Farm and Balletic. She celebrated her birthday earlier this month, 4 years of age. All right, we want to welcome in our special guest, and can't thank him enough for taking out his time on a busy Monday. And we welcome in on our Balletic Live Monday show here, Bret Jones, president of Airdrie Stud. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, Sarge. How are you, buddy? Thank you guys very much for letting me come on. I appreciate it.
Welcome. And Joe Moran with us, the racing manager for My Racehorse. And
hey, Joe.
I know that you're out inspecting a yearlings and kind of staying busy here on a Monday, not to mention other things. But, the process of breeding is always a curious one. I know that luck is an integral factor, but, just give us a little bit of a background as far as the breeding process is concerned. When you get a mare and you're trying to determine which direction to go as far as which stallion you want to breed to.
Sure. Well, we have to make that decision a lot. We've got about 150 mares of ours on the farm, and frankly, it's my favorite aspect of the business. I love the breeding game. There is tremendous highs that come from it. Of course, there are lows, just like in anything in this sport. But trying to figure out that puzzle, which you're not going to be right. You're trying to have a decent batting average, but you're going to be wrong an awful lot. But making these matings, trying to figure it out, how to make the fastest racehorse is an age-old practice that is just to me as much fun as there is. So we have done all our matings for the year. We're lucky. We breed almost, the overwhelming majority of our mares we breed to our own stallions to try to give them the opportunity. We stand 10 stallions here at the farm, 2 of which I know we'll be discussing in Upstart and Mage, both of which we're very proud of. And it's just trying to find the right mate. We have some tools to do that. Certainly, I know you guys have looked at the nicking, the physical of the 2 mates, the stallion, the mare, how they'll work together as you sort of try to envision what that baby will look like and try how to make an athletic horse. And then from there, there's, as you said, Sarge, there's an awful lot of luck involved.
Now we're going to jump into appreciate that and jump into the questions. And of course, as mentioned, in regards, just to give you a little bit of a background, Bret, and I know that you and I have spoken, 4,000 partners essentially on Balletic. You've had an opportunity to take a look at her pedigree being by Intermischief. There's no doubt, I think, in many minds that he is going to continue to excel as a broodmare sire, as he already has shown. But clearly, we're in a situation here with this mare, as she gets in foal, to eventually sell her commercially. So there's kind of 2 schools of thought here.
Sure.
Joe?
Yep. So I'll get in. We have a few questions brought in. The first one's going to be a little generic about the two stallions we picked, but the first one's just going to be about the personality of each stallion. So between Upstart and Mage, obviously Mage being a little newer to the farm,
Right.
and you guys having more experience with Upstart, but just a little background on the personality of each stallion.
Well, I'll start with Mage, and I think the best way to say is just he's a very, very cool dude, which I think is a prerequisite if you're going to try to run in front of 160,000 people, which is what he did. It takes a special horse to handle all of that. And then I remember seeing him at the Preakness a couple of weeks later, then when all the eyes were on him and how well he handled it. He's a very seemingly intelligent horse, charismatic horse. He looks like he's got a little bit of an edge to him. I think he knows he's a Kentucky Derby winner. But he has been wonderful around the barn, wonderful in the shed. That's sort of obviously the next question to be answered is how will he handle the breeding process? He bred his first mare right around Valentine's Day. So he's been at it now for a few weeks and has been fabulous to work with in that capacity. So great-minded horse. Upstart is just a dude. He's a big, strong, masculine horse. Always been strong, but again, easy to work with. We're very lucky with both those two horses. You can't say that about all stallions because there's a certain temperamental edge that comes with doing that when that's your livelihood. But both horses, really good minds. What we see with the Upstarts that we don't have the benefit of seeing with Mage is, if you're selling the mare in foal, it doesn't necessarily make as big a difference. But we see the mindset that the Upstart, his progeny have. You see them on the track. They love racing. They've always gone through the 2-year-old sales very well. And then they've been able to handle that process and go on to be race horses that stay around for a long time. They're honest horses. He puts a very, very good competitive mind on his progeny. So you know a little bit. There's a few more. You've seen a few more cards with Upstart, as you said, and it's all good news on that front.
Awesome. And just on that note, and it kind of leads me right into the next question that we had of certain stallions putting a stamp on their progeny. And being a little biased here, having Microshare,
Yes.
who was by Upstart. She was just a gorgeous physical size. Beautiful, and just a really easy horse to be around when you talk about the mindset of the offspring that you mentioned. But is there anything physically, maybe outside of size that you've seen that Upstart has stamped their progeny?
No, stamp is the right word. He does tend to do that. I mean, you can generally, as Nick was saying, we looked at a bunch of our yearlings this morning, and you can kind of tell the Upstarts when they come out. A lot of them, just like the Into Mischiefs in your filly, a lot of Into Mischiefs just have that certain look. With Upstart, he'll get the big blaze. He'll have that sort of AP Indy, flatter look to them, and which are big, kind of two-turn. His colts tend to be a masculine type colt, and he definitely puts a stamp on him, and Good Magic put his stamp on Mage. I mean, if you've ever seen the two of them, they are really, really similar made horses, similar looking horses, similarly colored horses, and the hope is that he would do that with his babies when the time comes.
In regards to the amount of covers, or how many mares have essentially consigned to each stallion, and you can talk a little bit more about Upstart. Obviously, he's more of the proven commodity, but how many mares have subscribed to each stallion this year, and then how does it compare in previous years with Upstart?
Mage is essentially full. We will certainly make room for this filly because I really believe this filly can help our stallion. She's a talented Into Mischief filly from a family I love. That's the Glen Hill family, One Dreamer. I was there at Churchill. I'm sure Nick probably was too when she won the distaff on the lead, and so I know that family well. And obviously
Glen Hill, right,
had talent and goes well with both stallions. So when you have one that you really believe can help your stallion, you want to make sure you've got room for. So we would certainly have room with Mage. Upstart the last 2 years has been full. He sort of took that next step with Zandon and Kathleen O a couple of years ago, to where his stud fee went from $10,000. had his success on the backs of those sort of $10,000 books, which is really to his credit. You know, he did not get the opportunities that a $50,000 or $100,000 first year stallion would get. He had to make it sort of the hard way. Now, we've certainly been supportive of him and always have been, but you know, he's had to do it himself, and he's, like I said, he's bred about 150 each of the last 2 years. That's sort of where we like to keep him. Right now, he's probably at about 110 mares or so. So again, we've got a very good book. We're en route to a really great third crop, and of course, he's at the elevated stud fee, so the mare quality has been wonderful. So all good news there. But both of them would love a date with your pretty girl. I know that.
In regards to the mating, we're looking at the True Nicks mating.
Yeah.
You know, this is, I guess, the conventional method for individuals to go to the stallion register, and we're looking at Mage to Balletic, and we'll show Upstart as well.
Right.
Let's say on a degree, a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most important, what would you rate going the True Nicks in regards to a decision being made on basing the breeding a mare to a stallion? I mean, is it a 5 out of 10? Is it a 7 out of 10? Or can you take this to the Holy Grail and say this is it?
I would not take it to the Holy Grail and say this is it, frankly. And maybe that works against us, because I know both these stallions are A++ mares. I think the True Nicks are a great guide. What I love about it is exactly what you're showing here, Sarge, is how it shows the pedigree lines up, and you can see all the different influences and where they come from. You can see what blood you're doubling up on. And as you analyze these things, and even experts, frankly, are you know, wrong on a hourly basis. But there's certain things that you like to look at, you like to see. Certainly, Good Magic and Upstart have gone very well with the Stormcat line, of which your filly comes. I know when we go to the let's say this, so this is Upstart we're looking at. So what I would love about this is that he is a total outcross for this mare, at least through those first 5 or 6 generations, whatever it's highlighted there. We have had great success in breeding. I'm sorry, not inbreeding, but breeding him to Stormcat line mares, of which he is free of that Stormcat blood. And that Stormcat blood, as you know, there's a lot of speed there. There's a lot of precocity, all of which I think complements that AP Indy line that he comes from. That AP Indy line is that classic 2-turn dirt line. This horse was very much like that. So many flatters are like that. Upstart actually had probably more speed than a lot of horses from that line. Right. He was an early 2-year-old himself. He was a stakes winner as a 2-year-old at Saratoga, which is pretty rare from that line. And one of the things that we really loved about him as we were going through the process of trying to go get the horse. But he's a total outcross. This mare is inbred to Stormcat, so you're doubling up on the Stormcat. And Surly Furious, just kind of a timely update there, is a horse that we bred ourselves from that same cross, who just ran 102 buyer, winning the stake in Kentucky by 8 lengths the other day. Ran 124 equibase number. We ran an ad. It's literally the highest equibase number of the year so far. I don't know what the Saudi Cup got, but it was higher than even the Pegasus or some of those races. So it's a serious horse that's come from that cross. Just looking at, and I love also the way that I think Upstart, now I haven't seen your filly. I know she's pretty, beautiful filly. And I've watched her race replays, so I get a feel for what she looks like. But I just think he fits so many of those kind of into mischief mares that he can give that stretch to. He can give that physical presence that I just think complement each other well. So I love the way that pedigree lines up with Upstart, and that's a cross. We ourselves, I think we bred, like I said, we have about 150 mares. I think we bred 26 or 27 mares of our own to Upstart last year, and we're rolling right back into them. We'll breed 20 plus again this year because we really do believe in the horse. And there is a lot of those mares that are from that Stormcat line that we're doing that with. Zandon being another one. We bred Zandon here on the farm. He's a creative out of a creative cause mare, which is Stormcat line as well.
All right, here's a photo of Balletic, and that'll give you. I mean, she's
Yeah.
pretty much a cookie cutter version of what you would see from an Into Mischief.
Yeah,
And no surprises in this photo, wouldn't you say, Bret?
absolutely. She's a beautiful filly. Will be a beautiful mare. I mean, I love that shoulder, that neck, and she looks like she's maybe got a little more stretch to her than some of the typical Into Mischief. So she looks like a beautiful filly.
All right. I wanted to revert back to the idea of Mage. I mean, clearly, you know, from a proven standpoint, there's no doubt that Upstart he's the dude, as you would say. But going back to the idea of Mage and the fact that he is a freshman stallion, you sold many horses through the sales ring. And the idea getting Balletic in full and then eventually selling in the November sale in full in a perfect world of imperfection. Because, you know, she needs to get in full in order for that to happen and carry the pregnancy through. And again, I'm not putting you on the spot. I know that we're essentially in a coin flip situation here. We're just kind of back to Penny back in the day, you know, with the whole Secretariat story. But it's a percentage point in the voting. And if Hannah, and we appreciate Hannah, of course, Hannah Bloom, putting the content together. But we wanted to show you the voting on this. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but this is what it came down, Bret. And it's just mind blowing. So again, two schools of thought. Isn't that amazing? I mean, we had over 1,000 votes on this.
To a vote.
Yeah.
To a vote.
Have all registered voters voted yet?
Yeah, we haven't gotten the votes back from the Electoral College yet, but again, so it's a very, very difficult decision because good news is we're down to the 2 stallions. The committee, we had dozens of stallions that we looked at.
Yeah.
But you know, so again, there are pros and cons to each way. But let me ask you this question, then we'll get to a following question. Joe can follow up, and we'll let you go. But from a commercial standpoint, mares in foal to Upstart, what's your confidence rating as far as them going to sail with a mare like this?
Well, as you know, as I'm sure you've spoken on, it's one has no risk and one does have risk. I mean, that's the long and short of it. If you breed to a first-year stallion, that's why first-year stallions are appealing to so many commercial breeders, is because they can't have failed by the time either that mare or that foal or that yearling go through the sales ring. He comes with a big reputation. He's a Kentucky Derby winner. We limit our books here, whereas some other stallion farms obviously are more willing to breed a lot more mares. And you know, we have stallions that could breed more mares. We've just sort of chosen to go a different direction. Everybody has their own preferences. But I do think it will, you know, if you breed to Mage, he won't have just a ton of mares going through the sales. Our full book for him is about 160 or so. And so you have no risk with Mage, but you don't have necessarily the upside that if Upstart, if a horse like Surly Furious, who just ran one of the best speed figures of the year, goes on and wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, or you know, he continues. He's had 2 stakes winners already this year. And again, these are from still that $10,000 stud fee. So his best bred crops are the now just turned yearlings, then the foals that are being born, and then the mares that will be bred this year. That's once he sort of turned the corner, once he'd established himself. So you won't have the best books working for you with Upstart as you head into the November sale. Again, 2 stakes winners, a big time horse that could be a really big time horse. We have tremendous faith in the stallion. I believe he will be sought after come November, but it does come with that element of risk. There's no question.
Yeah, and before we get into the last question, I'll mention we passed along to our owners, but her full sibling did sell last November for $100,000 in full to a first-year stallion and Jack Christopher at the time. You've kind of answered this question unintentionally throughout when we were talking about True Nicks. And it doesn't have to be 3 factors, but when it just comes to the biggest factors, when you're matching up your matings, what are some of the biggest factors you look into?
Well, one of the things that we sort of have, that we're fortunate that we kind of know our families. A lot of them are families we've had for years, so we sort of know what we think we know. No one knows. We think we know what these mares need, and try to bring that in the matings that we plan. But certainly the way the pedigree lines up, nicking is certainly part of that. And then the physical as well is how they complement each other. At the end of the day, you're trying so hard to make an athletic horse. You know, the way that we see it, you know, when you go out and see who's going to be the best basketball player, and you don't know any of the background of these guys that just line up on the playground, you can guess who's going to be the best, and it's probably going to be the player that looks like they're the most athletic. That's not always going to be the case, but lots of times it is. So you're trying to make an athlete. So that is sort of the physical aspect of it, and then again how the pedigrees match up, and steering away from anything that you think you don't want to double up on, whether it be if you've got genetically a history of breathing issues, if you've got a history of any kind of little vices, things that you think you don't want to amplify in the pedigree, then you sort of steer clear of that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, before we let you go, I just want to thank you for the time that you've taken and answered all the questions. This has been educational, not only for myself, but for all the owners. It's going to go a long way, and we're super excited to get Balletic over there. Hopefully later this week to attempt to get in full. And Nick, if you got any final words before we let Bret go for it.
Yeah, Bret, as always, I've always appreciated your candor, and I get a little choked up just knowing the conversations that I had, with your father countless times at the sales. The one thing I can respect about Airdrie and your entire crew, and we thank you for welcoming my racehorse to have our correspondent Nikki, who was able to go over things with Shannon Cashinola and kind of discuss both stallions. But one thing I appreciate most about you, your father, your entire family is you treat people like people. And I think that knowing that the vote came down to these two stallions, for me, it's a godsend. So I'm anticipating it. I'm looking forward to it. It's just the decision of what we decide, which stallion to go to. So hopefully you'll leave the light on for us.
Well, thank you, Sarge. That's a great compliment, and it's just a great compliment that they would come down to two horses that we've got here in our barn. It really means a lot, and this process is incredible. I mean, to see the voting, to see how many people are weighing in on this thing, it's beautiful. To have people that really love and care about the business and want their want to be a part of these decisions. It's incredible what my racehorse is doing, how many people you're bringing to the table, and I sure hope we can have some good luck for you, because we're rooting for you.
Absolutely, Bret. All right, well, thank you so much. Bret Jones, president of Airdrie Stud, looking forward to continuing our discussions, and probably have to bring you on a show sometime sooner than later, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Nick, Joe, thank you all so much.
Have a good one, Bret.
Take care. See you guys.
I mean, couldn't come down to a much better conversation than that. I mean, I've tried to decide, Joe, just between what Bret had to say in determining which direction to go. But it is an interesting topic, knowing that you've got a mare that has a residual value, what's going to give you the best bang for your buck?
It's a question. And like Bret said throughout the show, as long as he's been doing it and his family's been doing it, there's not a perfect recipe to it. And in this game of racing, you need luck on your side, no matter what part of the industry that you're in. I really don't think we can make a wrong decision, right? I think we've really penciled it down to two good stallions, two quality stallions. Now, could there be a little difference when it comes to the final day of Liquidner, of course. But I think we have two great stallion options on our hands. We're going to do another voting process. When we wrap up this show, we'll follow up with the recap of this live. We'll send out another survey link to all the owners. We're going to try to have that closed by 9 a.m. tomorrow. As we kind of talked about earlier, she will have the opportunity to have her first go around of trying to get in full this week. And we would like to take advantage of that when it comes to everything. Getting the mare in full earlier is a huge advantage. It just allows that foal to be on the grounds earlier for the potential buyer, and allows them to get in full the next year earlier as well.
As far as this question from Bridget, this could be answered purely and concisely in a sense that we hadn't necessarily determined that it was coming down in the voting to these two. Now, keep in mind that TaylorMade does a fair amount of work with my racehorse, and they've been very kind to kind of open up their doors. Not to mention the fact that we had to connect with Airdrie to make sure that there was an open door available in which to breed. As you heard from Bret, that Mage had been booked full. They're going to make an exception for us, and we'll also have the opportunity to breed to Upstart. But the good news is you're right there in Kentucky. It's a quick shuttle, and essentially she would be ready for liftoff, according to Shelton. Am I correct on this, on Wednesday?
Correct.
So that decision needs to be made. But, this was great. I have to tell you that, having a live show, and I know that there were questions that were loaded up and thoughts and so much support from so many of you. And it's one pride that I take in being involved with my racehorse since day one. Of course, our CEO and founder, Michael Behrens, and the fact that he was wanting to make this as interactive and experiential as possible. And Joe, you always do a fantastic job with the partners. And whether you're having a winning or a losing day, I always feel like ultimately with my racehorse, it's winning in a sense that, we're like family. We go to these tracks and it's not all predicated on winning. I mean, I've seen instances where, we finish last, or even in a situation where a horse was injured, and we all come to the understanding that we're the lucky ones. We are to, be in the process of horse racing and the thoroughbred athlete. And, and it's obviously been a global expedition for my racehorse. So, again, we appreciate your questions and thoughts, and doing our best to have as many live chats as possible. All right, Byron, when and where can we expect the foal to arrive? Joe, if we talk about this perfect world of imperfection, things have to go just right. At least to get in foal. And once she does, then we're looking at 11 months.
Yep, we're at 11 months. And just I've seen this question kind of roll through the comments, a few of how soon would she go to the sale. The plan would be to aim for Keeneland November, the breeding stock sale. That's kind of the target. That's the premier sale that you want to be in. So that's our plan for her. So she would get in full. She would remain at TaylorMade throughout that period. And then hopefully be able to go through the sales auction ring, which I'm sure we'll have a fun event if we're able to get there. And then, as you mentioned in regards to the previous question, it's all going to come down to as soon as she can get in full, that 11-month gestation period.
Yeah, and that also brings back to mind, Joe, that when you're acquisitioning horses at sale, we're kind of in a delicate process, because clearly we're trying to buy the higher end horses, fillies, for example, that would have that high end pedigree like Balletic. But now we're at a crossroad where we're trying to take that residual that we had when we bought her and trying to essentially double down or get a return on that initial investment. So it's a little different though when you're trying to achieve the Derby dream and you're buying colts, which clearly we've gone to the yearling sales, the 2-year-old training sales. We're trying to give a good balance of both. But when you're buying fillies, you're looking at that residual aspect and not wanting to buy fillies that don't have that safety valve, if you will. Thankfully, Balletic has it. She has the physical makeup. She has the pedigree. Into Mischief is a sought-after stallion, is broodmare sire, and it's all good. Andy, do owners of Balletic have ownership of her offspring?
If she goes through the sales ring, no, we will not. And that is the plan. So the plan is the new owners would then take over Balletic. They would be responsible of her foaling. So at that point, I would have to imagine she's going to stay in the U.S. That is my guess based off the stallion candidates, but you never know. But we would no longer have ownership of Balletic or that offspring once it's born.
All right, and I think we've got a couple more questions here for this Monday Balletic Live. I want to apologize, Joe, because when we started this whole process, I was taken a little off guard. Usually 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But here we are. And Bret was just such a wonderful addition. And again, it really comes down to the luck factor. I mean, clearly she gets bred. She has to get in foal. If she doesn't get in foal, then we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. Kristen, how do breeder bonuses work once she's sold if the foal earns one? Balletic account staying perpetually open post-sale? Question.
It's a great question. We're going to have to get down to the logistics of that, but there's going to have to be something with that. Obviously, each state has a different breeders program, but we'll have to get to the bottom logistics of that aspect. Long
Yeah,
process, but that would
correct.
be a
You know,
big deal.
the key is if, you know, let's say she gets in foal to stallion A. If the foal ends up racing in a different state, then clearly you're not going to get the better royalties than you would be if you were in the state of Kentucky. But Kentucky's got a great royalty program for breeders. I mean, there are a number of states which would surprise you if you were breeding in different states, but Kentucky is a number one. So, Joe, I know that again, you know, the next 24 hours are crucial. We'll put our minds together. Obviously, the voting will go out. So essentially, we're down to 2.
Yep.
And the vote will consist of both Mage and Upstart. You heard the pros and cons. I won't stipulate what my vote would be, but I think what you need to keep in mind as a voter is that this is a commercial-based breeding. As much as we want to try and put the physical makeup and whether this versus that, Mage is the unproven, but as you heard there from Bret, the fact that Mage won't have too many mares that actually go through the sales ring in foal. So that in itself, I think, gives him a little bit of an upper hand. But on the flip side of things, what Upstart has done, clearly he is the proven commodity. The question is, does he have enough stock out there based on the mares that Bret pointed out isn't the strongest group of foals this year? They're going to be much stronger next year. So it's kind of a delicate balance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it would be fun to pay attention to all the upstarts on a daily basis on the racetrack, and that would bring a cool element. I think history tells you the first year stallion, as he says, a little bit safer, and that's generally what people do when they go for the resales. That safer option, you're just limiting that risk.
All right, Joe. As always, it's been a pleasure. And again, we want to thank Bret Jones, president of Airdrie Stud, and Shannon Castanola, who was kind enough to open up the door there as well. And of course, Nikki, who took time to get out and kind of get a front row interview with both stallions, Upstart and Mage, which I think is phenomenal. But of course, Hannah Bloom behind the scenes putting all the nuts and bolts together. But most importantly, for you, the partner out there in My Racehorse, we thank you for your continued support. And it's a Monday. It's a great day to celebrate. It's a good time of the year. And Balletic will be entering into a new chapter of her life. And we're excited to be part of the journey with this daughter into mischief. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you as always. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you in the winner's circle.